what I can share with you all this morning. Again, my condolences and thoughts and prayers with the families that were impacted by these actions. So, yeah, as the mayor stated, we have detained someone of interest. We're in the process now of coordinating with prosecution, conducting interviews, and being able to collect evidence so that we can protect the integrity of the investigation and that we can hold the individuals accountable for their actions.
And that's Providence, Rhode Island Police Chief Oscar Perez announcing a person of interest has been detained in connection with yesterday's deadly shooting at Brown University. That shooting leaving 2 students dead and 9 others injured. Joining us now with the reaction is Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty. Senator, thanks very much for being here. Your reaction?
It's heartbreaking, Maria. Last night when I got the news, I reached out to the president of Brown University to convey my condolences, my sympathies, and prayers for those who are injured. There's still a lot of facts we don't know, a lot of questions to be answered, but as we move into the holiday season here, it's just particularly heartbreaking to see this. I heard you talk with Senator Fetterman earlier about the message that we need to send. I hope it's one of calmness, and this is just a tragedy. And combining this with what happened in Australia, it's very, very disturbing.
How is it possible that the academia sector has had such a hard time weeding out and stopping anti-Semitism?
It's just unbelievable that it hasn't been taken more seriously. I don't think the White House can have been more clear that this has got to come to an end. That message should be heard by the universities rather than scoffed at. This is very serious, and to think that we've got anti-Semitism running as rampant as it is. I heard Lindsey Graham say it shouldn't be a crime to be, shouldn't be a death sentence, I should say, to be a Jewish person in America. That's absolutely true. Our Jewish friends deserve to be safe. They deserve not to suffer like this, and it's just a tragedy that this is going on American campuses.
And what do you want to see in terms of this investigation into the Brown University incident?
Well, they've obviously obtained a person. I hope this is the shooter. But we need not only to bring this person to justice, but to understand the motives and what is motivating these people to do this. What is the driving force for these terrible crimes? Having this happen on campus is so disruptive. These children should be there to study. They were in an econ class, Maria. And now I'm certain everybody's been locked down until this morning. Campus must be a complete nightmare. My heart, again, goes out to everybody there at Brown University.
Well, I mean, you know, Senator Fetterman made the point that social media has not been helpful, that you're seeing all of these negative thoughts and sentiments on social media when it comes to the Jewish population. Is this coming from outside forces like communist China riling up people? What can you do in the Senate on foreign relations to actually affect change?
Well, Maria, I think we've had plenty of clear evidence that outside forces, outside governments, whether it be China, Russia, Iran, you name it, are doing things on social media to be divisive here in America. This is exactly the type of thing that breaks apart the moral fabric here in our country, and it's something we absolutely should stop. We need to have more policing of what's happening. I think X has taken an important step in terms of identifying the source of some of these, you know, I guess you would call them personalities online that actually aren't American at all. They're misidentified. They're coming from foreign countries. The time has come to identify this, to make it clear, and to stop it.
We are showing Sky News Australia on the side of our screen to bring our viewers live coverage from Sky News Australia as it's happening as well. Look, you at one point in the first administration were the ambassador to Japan. You know the Asian region better than most. What can you tell us about our Asian friends to align with them to actually affect change in terms of this anti-Semitism?
Well, it's again, a shocking revelation here of what's happened in Australia. There have been many complaints about the immigration policies there in Australia. I think that the government there is going to have to address this head on. There's an amazing amount of anti-Semitism around the world that we're seeing emerge. Again, you mentioned social media activating it, but there have been, you know, massive movements of people that absolutely want to see death to Israel and death to America. for that matter. This transpiring in Australia at a holy time at the beginning of Hanukkah is just shocking. Again, we need to get to the bottom of it. The Australian government needs to come together and stop this sort of anti-Semitic behavior. And as the United States of America, the leader in that region, we need to be supportive of these efforts.
We are watching coverage from our sister network, Sky News Australia, where they are reporting about this Bondi massacre, at least 12 people dead. President Trump has been the best friend to Israel. Israel has had in the White House. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that many times. What would you like to see in terms of policy from President Trump at this point?
Well, President Trump has been the most supportive president we've ever seen with Israel. He's the one responsible for the Abraham Accords. He's taken decisive action in the Middle East to bring about peace. He's dealt with some very challenging situations that frankly arose under the Obama and Biden administrations. He's done an amazing job of working with Israel. There's still more work to do, clearly. When you see what's happening in Syria, when you see what's happened right here in Australia, more work to do, but I think what President Trump and his leadership can bring to bear is a solid stance and strong backbone to stand up against anti-Semitism around the world. President Trump can lead that effort. He's doing it right now, and I hope other national leaders will follow.
There has been a strong pro-Palestinian movement within the Democrat Party. Would you agree with that?
It's been shocking to me to see this because in the pro-Palestinian movement that they've taken place, it's also taken on tones of anti-Semitism, and it's just something that should not prevail in America, and the Democrat Party seems to be embracing this. It's shocking to me. Senator Fetterman has been a leader in the other direction in his party, and I know he's swimming upstream. It's really sad to see what has happened in the Democrat Party become actually a mouthpiece for this anti-Semitic behavior here in America.
Well, you say he's swimming upstream. He told us a couple of months ago that he felt isolated because of his stance on not wanting to shut down the government or, wanting to stand with Israel over and over again.
I don't want to try to imagine what it must be like in Senator Fetterman's shoes, but I'll just say this. The Republican Party has been supportive of the positions that he's adopted. He's worked well with us, and I think his position is much more aligned with the majority of the American people. Americans are not anti-Semitic. Americans are not pro-Palestinian. They don't want to see death to Israel. It is really shocking to me that the Democrat Party is so aligned with such a left-wing fringe that they've completely contorted their position and I think divorced themselves from reality here in America.
Senator, I know that you are just back from Memphis and you are covering crime and you feel that things have gotten better since the National Guard went there. You're back in Washington this week for a couple of days, and then you will wrap up the year, you and your colleagues. Do these incidents this weekend change anything in terms of your priorities these final days of 2025?
Well, it certainly brings a new gravity to everything that we do, Maria. The national stage here with these shootings in Providence, what's happened overseas, whether it be in Australia, Syria, there's a real concern that we've got to be serious. We've got to get down to business. And what we've seen is a lot of theatrics in the United States Senate, government shutdowns, et cetera. We need to be very focused on getting the National Defense Authorization Bill passed. We're going to do that before the end of the year. It's critical to our national security and to the security of our allies. We also need to be very focused on addressing the affordability crisis that we inherited from Joe Biden and the massive subsidies that he put into the healthcare system. We're working apace to address that. The Democrats' only solution is more of the same. Trying to fix a broken program by just doing it more and more and subsidizing it further and further is not going to work. Republicans are working on real solutions. And then with respect to Memphis, I'm so pleased with the progress there, Maria. We've arrested over 4,000 criminals in Memphis since this effort really began. This is something that started from the moment President Trump was elected. I reached out to the leadership there in Memphis. We put together a very close collaborative team working with federal agents, working at the state level, working locally. And we brought back 142 kids to their homes who had been missing. The serious gang members are now behind bars. We're making Memphis one of the safest cities in America. It's a beautiful city, it's a wonderful city, and it's a real feat to see this sort of transformation happen so quickly. My heart goes out to the people there whose lives have been changed, and my thanks to President Trump for his leadership in all of this.
Senator, we want to thank you for your leadership. We so appreciate you this morning. Thank you, Senator. Senator Bill Hagerty.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.